More details come out about this crash. More details are coming out about the storied history of the airplane itself, and few people know more about that plane than a man from Higganum.
Yeah, we actually interviewed this man yesterday over the phone on the air, but Jimmy, you went out and spoke with him in person. What did he have to say?
Andy Munson, fascinating conversation, a wealth of knowledge. He is a Collins Foundation member, and he actually took, guys, one of the final flights on this ill-fated B-17. The pictures tell part of the story. A vintage B-17, the wreckage now strewn across the Bradley tarmac.
It would have been a dream come true flight for them, and to have it end like this is just the most awful thing I can think of.
There are few who were better acquainted with that B-17 than Andy Munson. The Higganum resident is an aviation enthusiast, a member of the Collins Foundation, and he was also a sponsor of the plane known as 909.
And I took my first flight on the 909 in 2008, and I've been up and down in all of the Collins Foundation's planes ever since, well, 3 of them.
In fact, Andy and his brother were just aboard that B-17, departing Oxford Airport. Here's the video of them flying above the skies of Connecticut.
Just 3 weeks ago. It's an experience like no other. It's hard to imagine it going down so quick, just out of the blue like this.
He spoke of his friend, the captain, Mac McCauley. You've flown with this pilot before.
I've flown with this pilot on both the B-17 and B-24, and he is one of the most cautious and just excellent pilots I've ever flown with, and I've flown with a few.
Munson went on to say he believes the Collins Foundation is dedicated to safety.
How this problem came up, I don't know, but it sure had to come on in a hurry, because if it hadn't, they would have known beforehand. That's the kind of operation Collins is.
And in the wake of this tragedy, Andy insists the vintage B-17 fleet should stay aloft.
If there's something that needs to be addressed, I'm sure the Foundation and all the other groups that are flying this type of plane will adhere to it. I absolutely think it's critical to keep them flying. It's living history, and I hope to God it keeps going.
All right, Fox 61's Jim Altman with us now. And Jimmy, I know that you picked up on this after interviewing this gentleman and having flown in vintage planes yourself before. Mm-hmm. This pilot, Mac McCauley, who was behind the controls of this plane yesterday, loved these airplanes. And for all of the people who maintain and fly and own these vintage planes, it's a labor of love. I don't want to speak out of turn, but we're not going to find out that there was some sort of careless negligence involved here. These people love these planes, and they maintain them meticulously. We're looking at some kind of a tragedy caused by something else.
Yeah, something mechanical. We think that's obviously up to the NTSB, but as you know, Andy said in our story, there was nobody more meticulous than Captain McCauley, and he loved this plane. Andy himself had been on a half dozen of these flights on this very plane.
Wow. Yeah, Andy saying yesterday that this plane can fly on just 3 engines. There's 4 engines on this plane, and they know one of them might have been having some engine trouble. Mm-hmm. But he said the most risky time is when the plane's taking off and when it's landing, and you can run into trouble if you're not gaining altitude.
And it's always the takeoff and landing that are the most dangerous times to be in one of these planes. We talked about this as well earlier, is that these planes are very powerful, but when something goes wrong, they are not nimble. They are not like the aircrafts of today. And we also have to take into consideration it's 75 years old.
It's 75 years old. What we learned in the NTSB news conference today, built in 1944, purchased by the Collins Foundation, if I recall correctly, in 1986, maintained well and flown quite a bit, but it is an old airplane, and so we'll see what the NTSB comes up with.
Yeah, interestingly, the NTSB also talking about how this plane has had 2 incidents that were documented. One was an accident, the other one an incident where the plane's landing gear didn't come out. NTSB not investigating that second one, but did investigate that first one. So again, the part of that plane's history is an important part of this investigation. Jimmy, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Fox 61's coverage is going to continue. We will dedicate a lot of our time to making sure we're following the investigation and, of course, the lives that are impacted.